So,
So here we are.
so as folks, make their way back into the live stream, I will go ahead and do redo the introduction that I've already done, which is that my guest is the brilliant Sherry Dunn, who is it fair to say that, Sherry, that you were a journalist, like a traditional
I
type journalist?
was. I was for a
Okay.
decade. I was a reporter and news anchor in
Okay.
traditional TV.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so she's a reformed journalist, um,
Yeah.
attorney, and author of the book Qualified, and also a resident of Portland, Oregon. So,
Yes. The hellhole itself, Portland, Oregon, which
yeah,
is not a hellhole.
the home of
It's
the frog.
the home of the frogs. Yeah. There's an irreverence to Portland. So,
I like it. I like it a
that's
lot.
how we do.
Now, are you born and raised, or you just,
No, no,
moved
no,
there?
no. I'm born and raised in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, actually.
Really?
So that is I'm a Midwesterner by temperament and by orientation. I
That's
guess
it.
that's what I'll say.
I used to, in my former life as a investment guy, I used to do the state of Wisconsin Investment Board was one of my clients.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So I've been to Madison more than a few
Uh-huh.
times, um, and always seemingly the wrong time of the year. But you know how that goes.
Yeah, yeah. You know how that is. It's the Midwest. It's always
Yeah,
wrong time. It's like coming here in Portland. I always tell people to come in the summer so we can fool them because it's beautiful and it's dry and it's sunny and it's glorious. And in early fall. And
yeah.
but don't come in the winter because then you'll be like, wait, what a minute? What's going on here?
Yeah, I haven't been to Portland, but I guess as close as I've been is Seattle. I've
Right. I
been
was
to
just up in
Seattle.
Seattle yesterday. I was there doing a keynote at a nonprofit called Uplift Northwest, and I met somebody who follows me on Substack. He was
Wow.
at the it was an empowerment luncheon for this nonprofit, and he said, I was like, what's she doing here? I'm like, I actually have a real life with speaking engagements and consulting and an actual job outside of Substack. So yeah, so I was just up there. It's very similar, but I was thinking about the difference yesterday. Well, we're farther south, Portland, so heading
Mhm.
toward California. So we're usually 5 to 10 degrees warmer in the summer, which matters to me. I like it to be a little warmer. They sit on the sound. So we actually are inland. We have a river that goes through, but we're inland from the coast. And we're just more quirky.
Portlandia. So,
Yeah.
that may be a good place. Let's start there because, just as we've been talking, we were thinking about sort of a roundup of the week, and I was like,
Mhm.
man, there is so much going on just all across the board. But Portland's as good a place to start as any
Yeah.
because that seems to be the focus, or at least the one that we're hearing about the most. Because I guess
Mhm.
they're messing around in Memphis, obviously Chicago, but Portland seems to have really been in the news this week.
Yeah, I wrote a newsletter about this, and for a lot of people who don't know, Portland has always been a target of the far right. Um, every summer before January 6th, the Proud Boys would come here and harass citizens in the summer. That's like no exaggeration. They would get a permit, they would go to Courthouse Square, they would have their rally, spew hatred. And it has a lot to do with Oregon was a white utopia. So it was founded as an all white state. There was the Constitution prohibited Black people from being in the state, although Black people have been in the state since York, who is the Black enslaved man who helped Lewis and Clark on their expedition. So we've always been here. But there is, and I call it and now don't get me wrong, there are plenty of people here in Portland and in Oregon, broadly, who agree with Proud Boys, who have racism, who are, discriminatory. But Portland overall does not do whiteness right. for other white people. I mean, I think that's the way to really describe it. It's like Portland has this history of pushing back. And there was a murder of a young African man here in the, I think it's late 80s or early 90s by neo Nazis. And that really changed Portland. White people started forming anti-fascist groups, groups against fascism. They would actually go out and confront these people and be like, "Hey, get out of here! You know, we don't want you here." And
Wow.
that became what we call Antifa. It's not a formal group. It's not like the Klan. There's no membership. It's people who would go out when these Proud Boys would come in the summer and say, "No, you can't just run roughshod over this city," right? So it is this pushback against white supremacy that seems to be very offensive to other right wing white people, which is why Portland stays on their radar. And it's not like, again, it's not like Portland is some great race utopia. It's that I think the white people here who settle here want the ability to do what they want to do in a more liberal space. And this seems to really annoy and piss off
Really?
uh, super conservative. They would come here every summer. I mean, really, after January 6th was the first summer where, since I had lived here, I've lived here for a decade. The summer after January 6th, the first summer they didn't come because they were in jail finally for, and we didn't, and Black people who lived here would put messages on Facebook like, "Oh, they're here, don't go downtown," that kind of thing. These people really, and they came primarily, not that none came from in state, but they primarily came from Washington State and Idaho. They literally would come here to harass these liberal white people. So this harassment of Portland is a long running soap opera. And to have the president now engaged, and the way I think of it is like white supremacy does not like deviance from itself. And it wants to force these white people to get in line, you
Mm,
know? And so it's about so much more than the ICE facility, or even we have problems. We have homelessness problems, mental health issues, drug issues. We need government support in the form of money to help with those issues, but we don't need a militarized force. Before he talked about the ICE facility, I'm not making this up. There were 12 to 15 people sitting in front of the ICE facility in lawn chairs. That's who was down there. Now, there had been a couple of little outbursts earlier, but it still wasn't like a lot of people. But there's like 12 to 15 people. This man is trying to call in the military for 12 to 15 people. And then by highlighting it, then people started going down there because they're like, so that's what they want to do. They want to draw a confrontation so they can have a violent confrontation. That's my
appreciate
opinion. Yeah,
appreciate.
yeah, yeah.
So there were no like terror. So wait a minute, Portland wasn't on fire
No, Portland's not on fire.
because
Now,
I heard it was on fire.
what they were talking about was protests after George Floyd's murder. There were sustained and real, again, there is a history here of people turning it out. I mean, people like, "No, I don't like that." There's a history of that. But that is from 5 years ago now, 5 years
Right.
ago. Yeah. And so, no, we do have big city problems. Nobody is saying we don't, but we don't have problems that need the military to shoot and kill us to fix. And that seems to be, when he issued that order, he said, use all full force. Well, full force includes deadly force. Why are you going to use deadly force when there's 10 to 15 people? What are you talking about? So that tells you the sickness of what is going on. And when that woman came here, Christy Nome, it was a beautiful day. She was here that day. She could have told the truth about what she saw, which was few people, a beautiful day, nothing much going on. No, she called every one of our elected officials liars, said they were lying, that we're
I
hiding
saw that.
protesters in the basement. Where are we hiding protesters? I mean, I find it rich that someone whose entire face is a lie would call all of our elected officials a lie. So I'm just going to say that.
Well, it has to be said. There is a lot.
I mean, her whole face a lie. So I'm
So
just trying to figure out.
so I got to let that process for a minute. So so I saw a video, and this was a news clip, and I don't remember if it was Portland or if it was Chicago. I just saw this the other day, or like yesterday, and a woman was in her shower, and they were looking for, she's a citizen. They were looking for her husband, and they blew the door off of her house
Mm,
and went in. And, this lady is in the shower. She doesn't know what's going on. And she had, little video cameras in the house. So
uh-huh,
it's documented. These guys go in, guns drawn. There's nobody there but this woman. She's pregnant. Uh,
mm.
Her husband, I'm not sure if he was at work or why he wasn't there, but no one was there. And it was a complete orchestrated situation. Christy Nome was there.
Oh, that's how they do.
Okay.
This is a
And they
I'm gonna
showed
tell you.
people had video. She was like getting makeup, getting her
Yeah,
hair
yeah.
done,
Oh,
had
yeah, yeah, yeah,
cameras and all this stuff like she's
yeah.
shooting a movie scene. And
Because
it's
these
just,
people are crazy.
well, I think when or it probably won't be me, but 20 years from now, when they just, when someone looks at this era, it's the lying. That's the part that drives me crazy.
It's the
Look, if
lying.
you
The
don't
lying
agree
is
with me and you've got a
necessary.
really good reason, okay. But the making up story part of it, that just, man, I have a problem with that.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm trying to find something. I was trying to look for something, but the lying is a critical part because you need to lie to justify the crime. You need to lie. And this is all oppressive regimes, right?
Hmm.
According to Nazi Germany, Jews were responsible for X, Y, and Z. Gypsies were responsible for X, Y, and Z, even though they didn't have any power and they weren't doing anything. You have to lie on people to create a bunch of confusion to get people ready to do atrocities. So the lying is usually a precursor to great atrocity. That's the way I think about it. So when you notice people lying, you should get real worried
Well,
because the lying is necessary.
part of it, Sherry, is that unfortunately, everybody's walking around with a phone in their pocket, but most people aren't reading the news. Or
Uh-huh.
they're reading something that they think is the news, but it's not really news. You with me? I mean,
Yeah,
Breitbart
yeah.
or the Epoch Times, or that's not where you go to really know what's going on. You're going to get a story, but it's going to be that lie, right?
Mhm.
Um, I'll give you an example. And this is just the stuff I run into, just day to day stuff.
Uh-huh.
I was The beach is like a block from my house. So that's where my wife is now. When I get to talking, she says, I'm gonna go over to the beach because she can hear me anytime. Um, uh, so we're at the beach, some neighbors of ours walk over, and I don't even know how this came up, but electric cars, that's the trigger word.
Uh-huh.
So so I don't know. I don't even know how it came up. But I guess I must have said something about an electric car, and you would have thought I dropped a bomb. She said, "Well, boy, this is one of the neighbors." She says, um, I wouldn't buy one of those things. You don't know how you gonna juice it back up if it runs out." There is an electric there is an electric recharge station closer
Mhm.
to me than a gas station.
Mhm.
But in her mind,
Yeah.
and think about it. If you drive any car long enough, you can run out
Yeah.
of gas just as easily as you can run out of electricity.
Well, I think she's like the governor Virginia race for governor, the black woman who's the Republican candidate named
Mhm.
Winsome who thinks solar power don't work at nighttime. I mean, you dealing with some hardcore craziness. If the sun go down at
Yeah.
night, then all electricity go off.
I mean,
She's never heard of stored battery power or anything of that nature.
I think a lot of these people know, but they don't think you know. And 9 times out of 10, the people who they're targeting with this mess don't know. They
Well,
really,
I would say don't overestimate though. I mean, the average so I was just in London promoting my book in the UK. And not to be like, oh, London's
wait
so
a minute,
much better.
let's not roll over that. You were
Yeah.
where doing what?
Yeah, I was in London promoting my book. I was at a conference of Black attorneys, 450 Black barristers and
Yeah.
solicitors, because they separate the practice out in those two ways. And then I was promoting the book. I had this amazing dinner with Black intellectuals there while I was there, did book signing. And one thing that's clear, and this is because of the way Europe is made, right? People are more literate, they read more, and they have a sense of themselves in relationship to the rest of the world. So they know Italy is there, and they know Germany is here, and they know Americans, we don't read. And our literacy is like sixth grade, fifth or sixth grade. So I wouldn't overestimate the fact that people actually don't know. And in an age of deep fake and AI and confusion, it is very easy. There was a guy on my LinkedIn page who is passionately arguing that systemic racism has never existed. It's a fallacy. Um, there's a lot of limited knowledge, and then the goal of these folks is to push it back even further. I guess they
Oh
want
yeah.
people to have like a fourth grade reading comprehension and a less knowledge. The Prager University that is taking over teaching in Oklahoma, history in Oklahoma, Florida, these are huge states, right?
Yeah.
They are, Florida is anyway, they are saying that anti-racism or anything that looks at this is anti-American. And that's what they're going to be teaching millions of children, right? So I don't think we can overestimate how much people don't know. I mean, I don't think we can overestimate that. And that's what makes a population, I hate to say this again, primed for atrocities. You
Hmm.
have an uneducated population, you tell them lies that they believe, and they're ready to accept anything, up to and including murder, right? That's how you get there. Those are the steps. They are historical steps. They're the steps from Germany. They're tried and true steps, right? And that's why I said in one of my newsletters this week, or maybe it was a post, as wanting to be citizen journalists, we have to be scrupulous with what we share. This happened with Chicago. People,
Right.
well-known media figures, were sharing a video of a little girl being zip tied that was not from a Chicago raid. It was actually a video of a dad who was a police officer messing around with his daughter, and he zip tied her. And then people were putting that, and people say, "Oh, you shouldn't complain about that. That's just representational." In a world where we are heading toward real atrocities, we have to be very careful about what we share, because if we don't, people will be less inclined to believe when the real atrocities continue to happen. Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
Oh, it makes perfect sense. It really does. I occasionally do guest lectures at the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, and it's for the international. One of the professors at the School of Business actually is a subscriber. I didn't even know until then. Um,
See, they're out there. They're watching you.
I know it's kind of weird when you run into. I mean, I knew this guy, but I didn't know him like that, and I didn't think this was his jam, but it obviously is. Anyway, um, the first lecture I did was on misinformation,
Mhm.
and it's one of the reasons that I've gone back and forth, but finally just said, you know what? I just can't do paywalls. I can't figure out what the right amount is, and it's just free. And hopefully, if you build it, they will come, whatever,
Mhm.
right? But one of the things is that legit, reliable information is almost always paywall. The New York Times, maybe you get to read two or three articles, then you're gonna run into a paywall. Wall Street Journal, you don't get to read nothing,
No.
you know. And so there's so many of those. But then on the other hand, I mentioned the Epoch Times a minute ago, Breitbart. The guys that are throwing out a lot of this, and that's the to me the insidious part is it looks like real news because there's maybe
Mhm.
80% fact, but there's that one little bit that they throw in there that tries to move you to that message. And most folks can't tell the difference. And it was so
No.
interesting when I did this lecture. This particular one was before the election, and I made, which I believe has been borne out, I made the statement that probably the biggest purveyor of misinformation on social media is not Donald Trump, it's Elon Musk. That
Oh
was the
gosh.
only thing I got any pushback on. You know, because
Uh-huh.
when I finish up, I'll leave 10 minutes or so for questions, Q&A,
Uh-huh.
and that was the only thing anybody said where they disagreed with me, and it
Oh
was
my gosh.
like,
That
"Well,
was
yeah, but
before
that's free speech." And I said,
was
"Well,
that before all of this happened? Or
it
yeah.
was as it was happening."
Okay.
This guy had Twitter. He's constantly pushing this, replacement theory and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
I gave some examples, and boy, folks, e Elon Musk is really interesting to me in that we America has this thing that we've done where we have equated intellect with the amount of money that someone has.
Well, we've always done that.
Okay, but
That
it's
is our
really,
origin
really
story.
crazy now.
No, no, that's our origin story though, right? Because we're a country that grows out of an elite class of planters,
Mhm,
landowners, and by divine right, they are smarter than us. They know more than us. And
mhm,
there is, I've often thought about this. I think in the American psyche, and I guess you would say white American psyche because it's kind of their European story, there is a pull toward feudalism in there. There's a pull toward serfdom. Like there's something in the European psyche, I think, that really elevates, think of kings and queens, right? We don't have
right,
kings and queens, but the wealthy are our kings and queens in a lot of ways. And they always have been. And they, Peter Thiel and all these people, they talk about this, the dark enlightenment. They really are talking about this historical through line where they're it's almost like divine destiny. Their wealth means they know more. Their wealth means they're smarter. And we don't challenge that. I actually say it's part of our founding of who we are. And we actually fight against it, like the revolution and the Civil War. We kind of push against it, but it's still like, I think it's a big part of who we've always been when you
mm,
uncover it, that we always thought rich people were better and smarter. And we believe them. And no matter, and you're like, they're literally inherited wealth. But we're like, oh yeah, he must know more of what he's talking about. So anyway, I don't think it's just now. I think it's always been who we are, and it's an instinct we fight with. Just perfect example, George Washington, right? They tried to make him stay on, and he said, no, I can't. If I stay, it's not going to be a democracy. But that instinct to make him a king is still
mhm.
in us. If I that's my feeling. I could be,
Well,
that's
I
my
mean, you know what? I can't come up with a good argument against that because I've lived in
feeling.
America for a minute, and I mean, but people do assume that when someone is rich, they're smart
That's
just by
right.
default.
Mhm.
And so I guess what I was trying to say is they're not. I mean,
No,
I think it was AOC, who I love, said something in one of her interviews. I think this is months ago. And she said that I've been around these guys talking, and I think she was specifically talking about Elon Musk. And look, you can be very smart about a thing and not know a lot about anything else. I mean, and I'll
Mhm.
use myself as an example. I don't have a college degree. I am an anomaly in that I ended up on Wall Street and I worked around Ivy League guys. I'm talking about
Mhm.
like, coming out of Andover and,
Yeah.
prep schools, that track that ends
Mhm.
at Harvard or Yale or somewhere like that. And I mean, I guess they were better at studying than me, but I found them to not be, I'm not saying they were dumb, but they didn't know
Mhm.
as much
But
as I knew
they
about
were
money.
better. They were probably better at being born rich.
It helps. It helps.
They were being
But
better
you
at
know what? It's not even always
mistake.
rich. Sometimes it's the
Mhm.
connect, like a politician may not be rich, but they got that connection
Sure,
that gets
sure.
you on the glide path,
But that's still that kind of when you think about
it's
our
an
founding
elitist kind of
history.
thing, right?
That's right. When you think about our founding history, that's how we've always been. people who had power, be it wealth or access, kept that power and access and passed it on to other people, whether they were smart or stupid. It doesn't
Listen,
matter.
honey, I just stumbled into some shit. I mean, I don't know how I ended up on Wall Street with my. I mean, because
Mhm,
I wasn't even a remotely good student. I mean, you got to go to class, right?
mhm,
So, I mean, I can laugh about this now, but
mhm,
I was a disappointment, and there was just something about um, the way money. I couldn't pass college algebra, but
mhm,
somehow all the Wall Street shit clicked with me, and then
mhm,
algorithms. That all that stuff was easy for me,
mhm,
and I hate to say maybe it was because it was about money and it made sense,
mhm.
but I know, my son right now is sitting up there at NC State because you can't
Yeah,
get away
yeah.
with that now.
You
I
can't,
came
but
along
here's
at a
the
time
thing.
that you could.
But that's the great threat to the system, right? The system is not is threatened by your existence, your ability. I was coaching a young black man once, and he told me at his job, a white man he worked with said, "Well, I've had all these advantages and you haven't, and yet here we are at the same place." And the man didn't say it like, "Oh, how great," like, "Oh, how
Right.
threatening."
What are you doing here?
You know, that's threatening. How are you able to catch up with me when you shouldn't? And I think Michelle Obama said that too. She's been in some of the most powerful rooms, and these people ain't that smart. I mean, people, like you said, people can be smart in one area, not smart in another area. That's not inherent intelligence. But I talk about this in the book. The myth of qualifications in the United States, the standards of intelligence and merit only come up when you and I and people in the out group want to get in. They
Mm,
didn't have such high standards of merit and certification when it was just them. The first people who try to
mhm.
get in are Jews, and they get into these elite universities, and then they have to take the SAT. Now, you didn't have to take no SAT when it was just Protestant rich white people. So every time outgroup tries to get in, they create barriers because they're trying to protect wealth and access. And that's why I say it's never been different. It's just that they open up a little space to let a few of us in. And I guess now they're like, no, we're done with that. We don't want any more of them in.
It's
But
too many. Too many of
and
y'all
the
getting
funny
in
the funny part is too, is like Fox News is the biggest purveyor of lies. They even got sued for lying.
and paid. Because
Yeah,
I mean, you think about this: if you settle for almost $800 million, you must have thought it was going to be it was going to be worse had you gone to court.
that's right.
That should
That's what
tell you
all lawyers know. Right.
this. So we'll never know, but that actually makes me think of some, maybe a little topic change. And this is
Mhm.
something to me that I think, to your point about being careful. um I guess it was this week that, it all runs together. It may have been late last week, but a former Republican election official bought Dominion
Yes.
voting
Yes.
system,
Yeah, I know.
which was the subject of this Fox News lawsuit.
Yeah.
And I wrote about this, and I have. I'm not saying it's not scary as shit, because it is.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
sorry, folks, I used to be on the trading desk, so I will curse.
Oh,
I hope it's not
ooh. I have a
offensive.
hard time not cursing, so we're
Do
good.
not hold back, because you're among friends.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't
So
give a yeah.
so,
So
but
mhm.
this is I don't know how it is Democrats get caught flat-footed on this kind of thing. You just don't hear about a Democrat having even thinking about doing something like this. But this guy, um, he left. So he was a GOP official. I forget what state, but
I know it was I can't think of either, but wasn't it a state
Virginia.
that had a dispute? It had a dispute though over votes, right?
I'm not for sure.
Yeah. No,
And
I
that's
know what you're like.
so. But the point is, so he left that job and he started. So this isn't the first thing for him. He already had a company that did the when you walk in
Somebody
to
said
vote.
from St. Louis, Missouri.
Oh yeah, that's right. It is. It's
Mhm.
Missouri. No, the thing that's weird about this is when he was an election official, um, this guy Ed, somebody remind me, uh, Trump tried to get him um, approved as a U.S. attorney, couldn't, and now he's
Mhm.
somewhere in the DOJ as like an acting U.S. attorney. Ed Harris, Ed something. Anyway, so it's a lot of weird stuff going on there, and the
Mhm.
thing about this though is he started another company some years ago that when you walk in and there's a person and they've got like an iPad and they check in and it's
Mhm.
an e-voting pad of some sort. Well, he's got a huge amount. I mean, he's in states all over the country with that product, which is the front end. Okay.
Mhm.
So now he has bought Dominion, which is the back end. So you got one company that's checking who's coming in to vote, right? And then
Yeah.
you've got the other company that's doing the tallying of the votes. But he's smart because had he put all that under one company, all these regulations would have kicked off because there are all kind of rules which I mentioned in the piece that prevent one company from, have
Mhm.
end-to-end control of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
voting system. So he's just got two different companies.
Well, and
And I mean, it's
it's
legal, but
it's
it's
illegal, but it
absurd.
strikes fear in the heart of people because you have a situation where someone may be incentivized to who has the ability to change votes. And so for the midterms, I think, and to your point about Democrats being caught flat-footed, we have to have some kind of plan on exit polling, on
Mhm.
people noting their votes, on like we have to be proactive about making sure that we know how we voted and that for exit polling we get that information, and so that if we can go back with an assessment and I can say, well, I voted in this district and I know I didn't vote for Trump or whoever the candidate is, that they can go back and find that. I think that's to your point. I think Democrats are going to have to be a lot more assertive and organized about this midterm for this very reason. But talk about being flat-footed. Now I'm going to do a topic jump, which is the young Nazis.
I have it
Let's
in my
talk about
notes.
the young
I
Nazis.
was getting there. Yeah.
Let's
You mean
talk
those
about the
those
young Nazis.
kids, those crazy kids? Yeah,
Those
these are grown
20 to
ass
40
people.
year old, no, they're 30 to 40-year-old
I
kids.
know. One of them was a state senator. Isn't it
Yes,
interesting how when white folks do something wrong, they get infantilized? Oh, he's just a
infantilization.
kid. He and then you have an actual black kid, and
Who's
the guys
adultified.
end up shooting him because they thought it was a grown man. I mean,
Mhm.
no.
So adultification of Black people, right? Again, goes back to slavery. It's unfortunate, but all of our stories have a origin point, and Black children were never children. I mean, this is a key point to recognize, right? Black people, first of all, weren't people, right? We were chattel, like a cow or a chicken or something. We're chattel. Chattel slavery means that. That's what chattel slavery means. And so Black children weren't children in the traditional sense. They were small workers, or they were pups, or they use names for Black people that did not, like like you would talk about
Like
a
Buck.
yeah, buck, or you would talk about the children like you would talk about a puppy, like that kind of thing. So it was no humanization. So Black people from childhood on have been adultified by the US system since we got here. We've never been given the benefit of childishness, or those things could get us killed. Whereas white people tend to be over infantilized, especially white women, and there's a whole reason for that, which has to do with patriarchy and that kind of thing, but over infantilized. And so that is easy, but this is my question: why is the mainstream media not focusing on the fact that the Vice President of the United States said on social media, a post that was viewed by 31 million people, that this was nothing pearl clutching, wait, because they say worse in the Oval Office. Now that's a direct quote.
Wait, what?
That's right. That's just I can give you the direct
I
quote.
heard
JD.
the pearl clutching part, but I guess
Uh-huh.
the last part I had not heard.
Oh yeah. He says um they say worse in the Oval Office.
I
That's
mean,
right.
I'm not surprised because Trump's in the Oval Office, but but for him, wow, okay.
I mean, but here's the thing. People are having their what do you call it? Their visas
Mhm.
rescinded because
Because they said something mean about Charlie Kirk.
because they said something mean about Charlie Kirk. People are being fired from their jobs because they wrote what Charlie, I don't even like to say his name. The young man who was assassinated said. I try not to call his name if possible because I say it in one of my newsletters. It's like Candyman. You say it three times, somebody shows up. Like I just don't like to say the name because it's just not a good
You know
idea.
what? I can subscribe to that. I really can.
Yeah, yeah. So,
I stopped publishing stuff about him because it's almost like I don't
why?
know. It's just giving him life, and I guess to
That's
your
right.
same point. I mean, I
Yeah,
had
why?
because there's so much you can say about the trick that he played or that they all try to play on us with this guy. And
Mhm,
the way he is, in fact, I don't know if it's happened, but a couple of weeks ago in Wilmington, there was a rumor of a shooter on UNCW's campus. A bunch of police showed up. The university downplayed it, but it was all related to this guy. And
mhm.
after his death, they tried to turn, how schools have like a spirit rock or, this
Right.
thing that anybody can spray paint something on. Well, they tried to claim it like it was theirs, and a whole bunch of turmoil came out of it. And do you know the university now is they're having some event for that group of his.
Well, but here is the thing. How are you against anti-Semitism in the sense that you are defunding universities,
Hmm.
kicking people out of their jobs because they are anti-Semitic, you're saying, but you as have a vice president who said, and because that group chat was very focused on
Oh,
anti-Semitism.
it
Now
really was.
they
Oh, they
talked
hit
about
us
black
too
people.
because you
Yeah,
got
yeah, yeah.
right.
They talked about black people,
Yeah, but
talked about
most of it was really anti-Semitic.
violent rape fantasies for women. They did talk about all that, but they were obsessed with gas chambers, sneaky Jewish people, all this kind of
Oh yeah,
this
all
is
the
the kind of
tropes.
thing. Isn't Harvard currently under fire for this?
So my thing was, and I'm not saying I've never had what could be considered a racist thought. I guess just as a human being, we all do, but you control that shit. And I can't imagine what frame of mind I would be in to write something down about gas chambers, like
I
in
there's
a
no
group,
frame of mind.
like where
That's
some
just not
people
something
are
I think
seeing
about.
it. I mean,
Mm-mm.
just that you are comfortable enough with your racism, and
Mhm.
whoever else is
Is
in your little
listening.
circle, that it's going to be cool. Hey, about those showers,
So
I,
here,
I just can't get my mind around it.
I found this post from JD Vance. I think it's on X. It says all this pearl clutching over some young men joking around in a private chat. So now a murder of Jews is joking. These promising young Republicans shouldn't have their lives ruined over their language that is frankly very tame compared to the banter you hear in the Oval Office every day. So you calling us worse
Wait,
than the N
wait,
word
wait.
in the Oval Office every day?
Wow.
Yeah, why?
I mean,
Why why
wait.
isn't that on
Why?
every
That's a
news
good
station?
question. I mean, honestly, I had just heard kind of like I said,
Yeah?
part of it about the pearl,
Oh,
which I
oh,
thought
no,
that
no,
was
no.
bad. You know what?
Mm-mm.
Forget the media. Why aren't Democrats talking about this like
Look, look.
non-stop?
Yeah, nonstop. If that's what they're talking about,
Can you drop a
if
link to that
Harvard
in
and
the chat?
Columbia, huh?
I said, can you drop a link to whatever you're
Oh,
reading
yeah,
in the chat?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because wow. So yeah, I don't even know what to say about that. You got me.
Yeah, well, I
That
mean,
JD
what
Vance,
what
man, he is, what's
well,
so
JD
sad
Vance,
about him?
you have to remember though, JD Vance went to Germany and told them they need to stop restricting the free speech of neo-Nazis.
I know.
So we do have to remember that. Now he that was a tour he did. Elon Musk appeared by satellite and told them to stop apologizing for their past, which of course would be the Holocaust. So
Mhm.
you have the vice president who has a through line of apologizing for Nazi, and yet you have Stephen Miller and other high-placed Jewish Americans in this administration who claim that they are rooting out anti-Semitism. Baby, the call is coming from inside the house. The killer's in the house with you. It's not, so I'm trying to understand how anybody has survived the kind of support that JD Vance has promoted to these words. And he is promoting this. Like you said, first he said they were kids. Why should their lives be ruined? Well, why did you try to deport students from Columbia? Why are you trying to bring Harvard to its knees? Why are you trying to if anti-Semitism like this doesn't matter, why does other because it's BS. They don't care about
Of course,
anti-Semitism.
it's all about control. But you know what? The good news is MIT, Brown. Who else did I see? Was it Penn State? There was another school. Told them to step off. We
Yeah,
don't
they
again,
they
and
have
that's
gotten
all it
so
takes.
bold.
That's
They've
all it
gotten
takes.
so bold. They want to tell the schools what to teach.
Oh, I know. You'll have
That's
three
how
you
bold.
all up in there. Well,
Yeah.
Harvard really disappointed me because Harvard Harvard could have pushed back a whole lot harder. And
Well,
now
I
they
don't know
have
if that he said it was settled, but I've never read of a final settlement.
I haven't read it, but I heard that Harvard has agreed to um, do some sort of vocational schools
Well,
or
that's what he said. I don't know. I've still not
I'm
heard that
trying to
from
figure
Harvard.
out what
Yeah.
is what does it cost to learn to be a plumber at Harvard? I don't
Uh,
know how that would work, but that's what I've heard.
yeah. I don't know if that's true. I guess that's what I'm saying. Like I've heard
Everything
he
Trump
said that.
says, you just got to wait until you see something
Right,
right
that's
in.
right. Until I get the actual, and I'm not saying Harvard didn't. I'm just saying I only heard him say that, and I've never heard anybody else follow up with that.
It's just like
But to
terror.
me, the other thing interesting about the young Nazis is that um I wrote a newsletter, I guess this week, about Columbus Day and the origin story of Columbus Day and how it came about as a result of the hanging of 11 Italian Americans in New Orleans, right? That's the only reason we celebrate Columbus Day in the United States because 11 Italian Americans were murdered, tortured, and killed in 1891 in New Orleans. And we almost got into a war with Italy over it. And then the year after the hanging, we started celebrating Columbus Day. And Italian Americans were considered suspect race by Americans, especially the Sicilians. And we had a good relationship, Black and Sicilians. But after the hanging, they really embraced this Columbus Day. They really started to pursue to get into whiteness. And they became the biggest, the strongest enforcers of white supremacy. And what's interesting is that two of the young men, grown men in the Young Republicans chat appear to be Italian American. And one of them said something in the chat about, well, if they're two shades darker than a Sicilian. So that, yeah, that's right. That's
What?
right. That self-hatred, that wanting to be white, you saw that in that chat. It's connected to that
It's
Columbus
so
Day
funny
story. Yeah.
because I mean, in Arkansas, I went to school with Italians that were almost dark as me.
Oh,
But they
yeah.
but they were white. I went to school, or I'm sorry, worked with a few people that were, got Hispanic last name, dark.
Mhm,
Oh no, they white.
mhm.
I mean, there was a kid in our neighborhood, we're in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, lived in the black neighborhood, almost black as us. He's a white boy. and his last name was
Mhm.
Hispanic. Didn't speak a lick of, Spanish, just totally passing. I mean, you see it a
Well,
lot in the South.
you saw the reason a lot of Black people who tried to pass for white would say they were Italian. There was a famous New York Times editor, I can't think, Brossard was his name. I think he said he was Italian or something. Well, the Pope's
Oh, the
family
Pope is the whole.
said they were Italian, and I'm not saying they don't have some Italian, but they also had some Black. And so when people would pass, they would say that because it was a way. But the thing of it is, prior to that murder of those 11 Italian nationals, Italians lived obviously in their own communities, but they interfaced with Black people quite a bit. And the response to that tragedy wasn't, oh my God, white supremacy is terrible. The response was, how do I get into white supremacy? Because I don't want to be hung, you know? And so they developed this hatred of us about something we didn't do. We weren't the ones who hung them, but
Hey,
they wanted that white access so bad. And to hear these men hundreds of years later say that, well, if they two shades darker than a Sicilian, it's like that's why history matters. That's why understanding history matters, because we're stuck in a loop in some ways. You know what I mean?
oh yeah. When I the last neighborhood I lived in New York was adjacent to, I don't know if you know where Fort Lee, New Jersey is. It's right just on the other side of George Washington Bridge.
Okay.
And that area is one of the, I think it's probably got the highest population of Asians in the country, just in that it's maybe a 2 square mile area. And I used to joke with my wife, when our daughter started the first grade, you get your little school picture, and it was like her and maybe a couple of white kids, and everybody else is Asian.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, but that was just the neighborhood. And of course, they had the good schools, they had the smart boards and all that stuff back in the day, right? What I found interesting was a lot of people that took the bus that I took in to the city um, were, embassy, fashion district, those kind of folks. Um, and it always struck me how quick they learned, that I was probably not the guy they wanted to sit next to on the bus. I would
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
ride the bus. I had a pregnant lady stand next to me, Asian lady, she and her husband. And, my bag is sitting there. I move it, being a gentleman. And I saw her just that quick look at her husband, like, is it okay if I sit next to him? And you just see him kind of do that. Yeah.
Mhm.
And this woman needed a seat, but would not
Mhm.
sit next to my
Yeah.
ass. And this is like modern
Well,
times. We're not talking about the
yeah, no, no, no. I mean, you have to understand, again, history. The way everybody gets to be white is on the back of blackness, right? So we don't have white without black, right? We don't have a distinction without one or the other. So as we know, the terms white and black are only about 400 years old. They start to rise up during the slave trade. So everyone who comes here gets access to the American dream by standing on top of, not interacting, not supporting Blackness, but by distinguishing themselves from it. Blackness is the backstop. And the only way you can get to that is to show you are not that and that you are closer to white. Right now, they don't interrogate white supremacy. They don't come and say, "Oh, white supremacy is terrible. Why don't we change that?" No, no. They come and they get in
they
line
just come in and fit
on,
into the system.
yeah, and to get into the system. And, to a certain extent, can you blame people? I mean, 11 Italian Americans were not the only people who were hung. Italians actually, depending on how dark they were in the South, were routinely hung, right? So if you are like, I don't want that, and I don't even want people to think I'm that, you're going to go over the top racist, right? And, the Irish and the Italians become over the top racist to make sure that there is no association, even though we initially had good relationships with each other. But they have to distinguish themselves, I guess they might say, for their safety, for their protection. But the question is, why not interrogate white supremacy? It's like Stockholm syndrome.
Mm,
You're going to identify with your captor, with your abuser, instead of the other abused, right? And that's
mm.
kind of the system we have. And everything that people come here for the American dream is what we've made happen. That's the crazy part. Like everything that other people come here for and claim is the American dream, white people try to withhold. We push them to release fairness, equity, housing.
Oh man, did I lose her?
Sorry about that.
That's
I had
okay.
a
We'll
quick
wait.
call.
Okay,
Yes.
fairness, equity, keep going.
We are the ones who made that for other people. So that's the thing. And yet they don't see that. They look at white people as the givers of freedom and as the givers of life and as the givers of American dream. The dream only exists because of our nightmare. I mean, to be blunt, that is the only reason it exists. And so people don't see that. They don't want to see it. And yeah, it's tragic, really.
Wow. Okay, I should have written that down. But you know what? There will be a recording. So, as a matter of
Mm.
fact, wow, I'm looking. I can't. Boy, this went quick.
It does. I do.
Wow.
Actually, the call was a reporter. I have a call to talk about Sherm and Sherm's platforming of Robbie
I
Starbuck.
was gonna ask you about that because you're the person who brought it to my attention. Now, I didn't know, are you on a board or something related to that, like a nonprofit board or something?
No, no, no. I was a member of SHRM and
Okay.
I, work in diversity, equity, inclusion, obviously. And Robbie Starbuck has no formal education. He has no certification. So SHRM, Society of HR Managers, is a certification organization.
Right.
You have to
For
get all
HR
these
professionals, right?
Yes, you have to get all these certifications to do the work, right? He has none. And yet he is being platformed as an expert on human resources DEI. His expertise comes from his ignorant uh, discussion around diversity, and his he appears to have a lack of belief in the fundamental intelligence of Black people, women, that we are taking jobs from well-deserving white men. Now, Robbie Starbuck's family comes from Cuba. Another example of that. He's only 30 something years old. He doesn't know his ass from a hole in the ground, to be honest. But he is being platformed by Sherm as an expert, okay? And in conversation with Van Jones, who does questionable things
Has that
every
even
day.
happened yet?
No, I think it's coming up. I think it's next week. So, yeah, and Van Jones does questionable things just on the
All the
regular.
time. All the time.
Yeah. But, and so that it's insulting and it creates a hostile work environment because now I, as a Black person, would have to deal with a white HR manager who went to this and heard all these vile things. And that person feels empowered to come back to my job and repeat these things or have policy that reflects these things. And
Mhm.
SHRM should be dealing with the fact that Black people's unemployment has soared. Black
Okay.
women are losing jobs in record numbers. But no, instead of that, SHRM is platforming somebody who wants more of that, who wants us to lose more jobs because he thinks white men should have all the jobs and then we should get whatever is left and whatever they deem that we should get. So the fact that a major HR organization is platforming this is insane. And most people would get fired for saying the things Robbie Starbuck says. And yet he is being held up. And the man who runs it is Black. It's a Black man. Heritage Foundation money, I think, is
Mm.
involved and some other
Well,
things.
well, he's now a fellow at the Heritage Foundation, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh,
One of
you'll
his
love
fellows.
this. You'll love this around capital markets. And it's not that he doesn't have the education. He's never worked in it. So and you could say, well, okay, well, I worked it. He's never even worked in it. So this is what they mean by merit.
Mm.
Their merit is their race and their gender. And the rest of us, back to the old days, we have to meet all these standards and qualifications. I mean, I have a law degree, wrote a book. Sherm wouldn't put me on the stage. but they put somebody who doesn't know anything on the stage. So that's what's going on. So I do have to talk to this reporter about this.
Okay, so folks, Miss Sherry Dunn, if you're not
Yes,
following
follow.
her, do so. If
Yeah,
you're not subscribing, take care of that. And while you're at it, subscribe to the Journeyman. And
absolutely.
ooh, well, we made it through another week at least. I guess
We
that's
made it through a week. You know, Marlon, when I told people I was going to be on with you, they were so excited. They're like, Marlon is so great. Like you're getting a lot of great. And I heard you talking about wanting to grow your Substack to 20,000. You know, I think that's great. And I think you talked about this also. People on the other side get a lot more resources put into them. Bari Weiss from CBS is now the head of
mm,
this girl. The woman ain't got no $150
every even
million.
been a report.
She sells. Yeah,
I mean, she's an opinion columnist,
right.
I
But that's
guess.
right. But
That's
not
not the
she
same thing.
she ain't ran no newsroom. I sat on an anchor desk
I
for
mean, think
10
about it.
years.
How do you
Yeah.
start off? She's
Yeah.
climbing the ladder by starting at the top rung.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct. But Substack gave her that lift. And
Hmm.
Substack, if you value what Marlon does, what I do, subscribe. Tell people if you can become a paid subscriber, if you can become a patron. If you really have the resources to support more than a subscription, do more than a subscription. These are the kind of things that people have to do if they want these voices like ours to continue.
Amen. Folks, go. It's 4 o'clock. It's almost quitting time. So, wow, I really enjoyed this, Sherry. We have to
Yes,
do it
thank
again soon.
you.
Thank you. Thank you. I always learn a lot whenever I talk to you. I really do.
Well,
I really do. Um,
uh,
so do what the
all
lady
right.
says, and we will see you on the other side, folks.
Yes. Thank you all so much. Bye-bye.
Bye. Take care.